guys, Beastech Talk here with another brilliant guest, Jane Fischer. She is a passionate first-time startup founder. She will share her insights, fresh insights on building and developing startups. Please, Jane, welcome. Thank you so much for coming and joining us. You honor us with your presence.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's get to it. I guess we can start with, who is Jane Fischer? What do you do? What is a little bit about your background, and how did you come to where you are today?
Well, that could be a long answer, so please feel free to interrupt and ask clarifying questions. So I'm Jane Fischer. I'm indeed building a startup. I'm a first-time founder, so it's been incredibly exciting, frightening, and quite a roller coaster. And I'm a huge adapter of social impact, as in I like my professional life to be about helping others. But I'm not an altruist as well, so I'm not building a charity. I decided to try and build a startup and see what happens. And my startup is called Imii, and it's an AI assistant for immigrants. And by immigrants, I mean people who move to a new country and commit a very life-changing move. And that AI coordinator helps them settle in, because the immigration journey really starts with not just getting a visa, but rather once you step on the soil of a new country, that's when all the most difficult parts happen. Because getting a visa is really not the most difficult milestone. When you look back on it, as enduring it may be, actually settling into a new country, getting accustomed to its culture and the way things work and finding all the right services and establishing yourself, that is a journey, and that's what we're trying to facilitate.
Okay, so it is an assistant that helps newcomers to different country to settle in. Is that right?
Yes, just to explain and illustrate how exactly it works. The inspiration behind this concept was one of my moves. In one of my immigration processes, I had a human coordinator who would pretty much live in my WhatsApp. And she wouldn't do things for me, but she would tell me where to go, what to do, which documents I needed to bring, walk me through processes like how to verify my academic qualifications, how to apply for certain documents or statuses or special offers. And whenever I had a problem, say with a mobile provider or my bank, she would connect me with someone who speaks my native language in those establishments. And that was a game changer. And when I moved back to London a year and a half ago, and I lived in this country before, I'm fluent in language, I've studied here, I know a lot of people, so I thought it would be a breeze. And that was very wrong, because I ended up wasting weeks of my life on navigating the very same tasks by myself. So that was the idea behind Imii, to digitize and democratize the service I got with a human coordinator.
You kind of started this business based on your own life experience.
Yes. Well, not just based on that. Obviously, I did market analysis. I've seen who tried to build something similar, or at least something that solves the same problem, and figured that, yes, the market is not a complete blue ocean, as in there are some players, there's some people trying to build something to answer the same calling, but there is no Google or Cisco or there is no established brand that we would have to overtake. So we definitely could get our share and perhaps become that name that symbolizes the one-stop shop for immigrants connecting people across the world.
Oh, that's actually a great point, because I moved into two new countries. And every time when I moved, of course, I would have to go through first the people that I remotely knew, had a little connection to understand which area is safe to live, how to rent an apartment or any room, let's say, how to get all these residence permit papers, and how to and all these bureaucratic steps. They always take time, and you don't really know where to go, how to do it. And this might be actually a very convenient tool to use for any people moving and settling in your country. And I hope We will be using it very soon. So at what stage is your startup right now, and when did you start it? How did you start it? I mean, can you just give me a little a narrative, and when did you decide, and what did you do, and how it grew to the point that you are releasing already an MVP, right?
Yeah.
So how did it grow to this point?
Well, it is actually quite a story, as in 2 years ago, I had no clue I'd be building my own startup, and quite contrary, even though some people back then would tell me, why don't you become a co-founder? Why don't you build something of your own? I would say, absolutely not. I'm not built for that. I was working for a startup back then. I was the right hand to a founder, so I would have quite a bit of say in how things would evolve. But when you're not in the co-founding scene, when you're not a co-founder, your influence is still very limited, however much the founders trust you. So my journey as a founder started, I guess, before the realization that I had to do it, but rather with the disappointment in being not the one in charge. Because when you join something that you truly believe in, and it is the case with startups, you usually join something that you really burn with, something that drives you. So I was a part of a cancer care startup. No one in their full sanity joins a cancer care startup unless you really want to change the world, right? Because it is not the simplest topic to work with. And so I joined it, and for a year and a half I was very much in love with that job. But then I realized that we're not going in the direction I was hoping we would be going, and my impact, something I came for, wasn't really happening. So I started looking for other opportunities, and I was already waiting for my global talent visa to UK, so I knew I was moving. And I was looking at the job market, and the more I was looking around, the sadder I became, because it was very uninspiring. As in, some startups were offering some more interesting jobs, and I'm a communication executive by my background, by my experience. So I was looking at those projects, but communications is not a well-paid role. So in non-profits or social impact organizations, usually a very low ceiling financially in terms of how much you can grow. And in the companies where they do actually pay more for that, well, those were mostly in the range of, hardcore fintech or crypto, which was big back then. Not saying it's not big now, but it's obviously the bubble has bursted and other things. So the more I was looking around, the less I was finding something that was truly inspiring. And at that point, it was December 2022, and I participated in a random giveaway of a blogger that I read, where you could, it was a non-secret Santa activity where you could write in the comments what you were willing to give to someone, a complete stranger, and you could also get a gift from a complete stranger. Mm-hmm. And I got a session of regression psychology. And regression is a thing where you dive into your past. So there are some more spiritual practices, like diving into your past lives, but there is also a more down-to-earth practice of just diving into your past experiences to identify the cause of problems in your present. So I came with a very different request, nothing to do with my professional life, but in the end, we ended up projecting first my past and then my future. Nice. And then in that future, I saw where I wanted to end up. And that picture stayed with me. And it was just this realization that to end up in that future, I needed to take control in my own hands. I needed to try and build something of my own. So that regression is a bit of a hypnotic session, as in you don't feel like you're being hypnotized. You feel like you're in a conversation, but actually that drives you through your subconsciousness and some of the pictures and images like that. So when that session ended, it was very early in the morning because the specialist was in Asia. So I went back to sleep. And when I woke up with this crystal clear realization that, well, that's the way things are. There is no undoing the realization that I had to step up and start building. And the same day I applied to Antler, the accelerator that helps you find your first co-founders and raise investment. And then a few days after, the idea of Imii was first conceived, when I was thinking, okay, I'm passionate about impact. What can I do with my existing background, my experiences, to build something meaningful for people? And that's it. And then for another half a year, I was basically immigrating. And so I didn't really do much work on startup, but I got selected to Antler, which was like this easy, even though it's I know the percentage of selected founders to be accepted into Antler is like 3%. I didn't feel it. It was super easy, as if it was meant to be. And at Antler, I started working my idea, tried to find a co-founder, started some B2C research, did not end up meeting the co-founder, as in I broke up with the person we tried to work with, didn't raise investment, also was diagnosed with depression at that point because there was just too much for my brain to process at the time, and the accelerator created that artificial pressure environments that just contributed. So it's not Antler's fault, it's just too much at the time, together with immigration and some other things. And then after the accelerator, I went finally on to take a 2-week holiday in Colombia, where I reloaded, refreshed, and figured that I'm ready to go back and build. And in a matter of a few weeks, I met my then future co-founder. We started slowly working together, and then we probably started working intensely this year. In January, incorporated, got our SAS status to be ready for fundraising, and now we are indeed releasing the MVP version of our app.
Oh, very inspiring story. Very inspiring because, that, I guess, the pivotal moment when you got that regression session, I think it was like meant to be, that you had to see it and you had to go. It changed your life completely. I get, well, from what you told, from what I see from here, I think you took completely new decision, and from that your startup was born. About this, the other co-founder, the new co-founder, how did you meet with her, and what was the reason that you decided, this is the co-founder I want to work with?
So to clarify, I tried working with 3 other people before her. So meeting a co-founder when you're an adult, you haven't met your co-founder in your, say, university or work project, it is a challenge. And that's the problem with accelerators, which supposedly help you find a co-founder, because there is no guarantee that you meet someone that you can build a business with. There are lots of people you can work with, but that doesn't guarantee that's a person that you would want to share these ups and downs with and really feel like you've got their back. So in the accelerator, I had 1 attempt and we had a great synergy, but it was just not meant to be, I guess. Then I tried working with 2 other people, and also they would be enthusiastic at first, but then their enthusiasm would fade away quite quickly. And I felt like I lacked the initiative from them, the engagement, the initiative to step up and not being told by me what to do. And then with Alexandra, my co-founder, we met at a startup event where I was pitching in an open mic. And she was looking for her next challenge because she is looking for a change in her life. Or was looking, because she's got it now, breaking away from IT corporations into the startup fields. And we just had this chemistry, I guess, and we decided to try working together, and we did. And I saw that she gives me what I didn't have in other co-founders, as in she shows initiative. I don't always have to tell her what I need her to do. She is challenging me. She's not afraid to tell me when she thinks I'm wrong, or I may be miscalculating something. And finally, from a human relationship standpoint, I feel like shared values is very important. And when I was very ill in January and she offered to come to me at night from the other side of London to go with me to Andy to get them to do something because I was feeling really bad, I felt like this is the kind of person I can rely on. So that was, I think, the point when I was ready to sign the co-founder agreement.
Oh, very touching, actually. And, we had other guests before, and I heard I wouldn't say they bad stories, but breaking up with the co-founder, especially when you went to some level, might be very painful, actually. Both in standpoint of personal standpoint and business standpoint. So finding the co-founder so far was one of the most challenging and the most important aspects that I've heard from the founders like yourself. And hopefully you will bring the Imii to the level where at least most of the immigrants will know about, and will be the first tool that they apply to when they need help.
Hope so too.
Okay. How about, what is the current stage of your startup?
Well, we're fully bootstrapped. We haven't raised any funding, so it's all been out of pocket, very minor expenses, but still. Because for me as a first-time founder, I think I could have raised some small money already, but I've been so conscious about me building our first business. And for my co-founder, it's also her first business. So I do get a lot of validation and support from potential partners, potential investors. But obviously, now that we're releasing MVP, they want to see some traction. But the point being, I didn't have the courage to raise at the idea stage because I wasn't secure enough. So whenever people ask me, how are you finding fundraising? It's probably difficult in the current economy. I say, well, I've heard the current economy is difficult, but I know the current economy is not my problem. My problem is myself, my insecurity to go and ask people for money. Because every time I'm thinking about it, I feel like we're not at the right stage. I haven't proven to myself yet. So one of the major reasons why I decided to go ahead and bootstrap and build the actual app, despite not having the right resources for it, is because I felt this would cure my imposter syndrome. So now that we almost have the product, at least I have the test flight mode app on my phone, slowly I'm getting more secure about asking people for actual support. And so that's why we're aiming to get into full swing fundraising mode very soon. Again, fingers crossed, release now. So from September, when everybody's back from holidays, that's when we'll be fundraising. But in the meantime, we're getting our first users in like manual testing. We get our first partners, mostly from inbound leads, because we have other people and companies finding us and saying, oh, hey, we really resonate with what you're building, with your values. Let's do something together. So that's been very flattering and also very healing for my imposter syndrome. So that's where we're at, building the right connections and network, because it's really not a tech solution. Tech is a very minor part. Anyone can build the tech that we're trying to build. Anyone who has a couple of dozens of thousands of dollars at their pocket could build something more advanced, but it's not about building the tech, it's about connecting all the dots. And that's what we're trying to build in the meantime.
Amazing. Great. Well, I guess every founder should feel and decide for themselves when it's the right time for them to raise.
For sure.
Yeah. So if you felt that you weren't ready, then you weren't ready. And I'm sure that you. So this is what I'm getting into. What are your like immediate plans for your startup? For example, let's say from investment side, what steps are you going to take to raise the money?
I think to be able to appeal to investors, the main thing we have to do now is to prove that we can generate money, that it's not just a lifestyle business, because it's fairly easy to make it a lifestyle business, but that's not how you scale and grow and make it an actual ambitious venture. So for us, getting some B2B traction, getting full conviction that there are companies that would pay for this solution, and we're not just going through B2C route, which we're not ditching. We'll still keep it so that this solution, at least this basic version, would be available to everyone. But we want to prove that this is beneficial for companies who recruit international talent and maximizes their ROI recruiting that international talent. So we're now assembling our extended database on like the exact metrics of what we're saving the companies, what we're benefiting them from. So next step is to be able to show the app and say, here is what we save you, here's how we benefit you, and get a few letters of intent from those companies that they would be willing to implement it. I think that would put us in the right position to fundraise more confidently and hopefully increase our valuation, because at the moment it's quite basic. So that's where we're at. But also a huge thing for us to do is to spread B2C, because this is really why I started it, to create the impact on bigger numbers of people. And we do have a pre-sign up list, which is again very modest because I haven't been putting ourselves out more, but still we get people finding us, we get people telling us we're really looking forward to your solution, we really need it, which is very heartwarming. So yeah, expanding our B2C database while securing a few prospective B2B clients is the priority, and then fundraising is the second priority.
Okay, nice. about this B2B aspect of your startup, what is your strategy there? How are you planning to monetize the app?
The plan is to offer an alternative to traditional relocation services to those companies that cannot afford bigger players who do it mostly manually, while also offering a solution to those companies which were never able to offer their employees any support beyond visa. Because there are a lot of companies that recruit internationally, they even relocate, but all they can do is to offer a bit of a monetary package. But that doesn't solve the problem of people taking that mental toll on themselves when they arrive. So when you recruit internationally, you already spent a lot of money on that because it costs a lot to relocate someone. And why you even recruit international? Why you bother? Because you want the best talent, right? You want them to bring the benefit to a company which no local specialist could. Right. So when you recruit someone and you relocate them, you want them to boost your metrics. You want them to boost the situation in the company. But instead, for the first few months, you end up with a very tired person who is overwhelmed with all the things like how to deal with their kids and their childcare, how to get them into schools, how do they rent a house which doesn't cause them any problems, how to navigate the local healthcare system, and so on. And not only do they show slower and less productivity than you would have hoped, they are also overwhelming your staff, such as your HRs, your mobility managers, your CEO if it's a startup, with asking them all the questions because they have no one else to talk to. You are the one responsible for them being here, so you end up wasting lots of your resources on that. So I'm not saying there is a way to exclude all of these factors completely. There is not. But there is a way to make this process more efficient and smoother for everyone and decreasing that human interference.
Oh, yeah, that's a completely different aspect to your startup, or the one that is not obvious at first sight. And this is the part that could make money.
We hope so. I mean, people say we have to prioritize B2C or B2B, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but I am willing to experiment with both things and see which one works for us as a business. Because obviously, if we want to work especially as a venture-backed startup, which I'm not sure we will be, because we're mostly looking for angel investment, but we might change that. But as a venture-backed startup, we would have to think about money more aggressively than if we were just dependent on grants and crowdfunding and all of that. So we're definitely looking to experiment and diversify our monetization to ensure that we have the best model that really helps us grow and deliver the impact that we want to deliver, while also helping us grow as a business and as founders, because again, we're not altruists, we're trying to build a business here.
Okay, great. So you said you are pursuing mostly angel investors rather than VCs?
We think for the first round, this is our most favorable outcome. Pursue angel investment and perhaps match it with grants, because that would ensure we're not that pressured to show hyper growth. Because I'm work as a consultant, I work with VC funds, so I do have a bit of the external overview of that side. And I know VCs are pressured to deliver this extortionate outcomes because that's how their models operate. And we'd rather work with investors who do understand that impact projects take more time to really develop, because it's not just about money. So there are some impact VCs and they have a bit of a different investment thesis. So we may benefit from getting investors in by impact VCs, but generally it would be easier for us if we work with more impact-driven investors who are willing to compromise a little bit on the pace.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it's a important point to pay attention to, because as you said, it's not like profit first. I mean, it is profit.
It is profit
first.
It
is profit first, of course. But as you said, the monetization might be maybe a little complicated rather than like normal, let's say, consumer apps.
Well, I'd put it this way. We did not create this to make a unicorn and exit in the next 5 years. That's not the aim. The aim is to create a legacy. The aim is to create a name. The aim is to create something that helps people while also growing and getting increasingly recognized across the world. And that may just take a bit longer than the traditional startup route, where you're just creating a business that you're looking to exit in the near future, and so are your investors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand. Okay, well, you mentioned grants. What kind of grants are you looking for to apply, and have you applied to any?
We haven't really applied to anything yet. Again, part of it is just my imposter syndrome, that I thought we should get ourselves along a little bit further before applying. But we're definitely applying to UK's smart grants, the innovation grants. But also there are smaller ones. And for us as a bootstrap startup, no money is too small. So I think in the near future, we'll be looking into other opportunities as well to just get ourselves a little bit of boost. And pour more money into improving our app technically, while also marketing, because obviously marketing is no less important in our case.
Definitely, marketing is one of the most resource demanding parts of any business, I guess.
Especially with time. When there are just two of us, it's mostly the time that we need to buy.
Yeah, I understand. Well, now I guess we've covered pretty much the startup part, and while developing your startup, what were the most challenging parts? What were the most challenging situations, and how did you navigate them?
I think my biggest challenge so far is just really shifting the mindset from being an employee to taking charge for your own business. Because it sounds cool to be in charge, but also that means you're fully accountable for your results. You get no instant gratification for anything. Because, especially for someone with imposter syndrome, this instant gratification is actually a very important thing. Like, through all my life, I've been doing things which I never thought I would be doing, with no prior background. That just happened this week, even before startups. Like, I used to be a sport journalist, even though I never watched sports before I was the age of 18. And I stepped into sport journalism. I wanted to be the broadcaster on the national sport channel. And I got into startups with no tech background. So doing things that you've never done and suddenly realizing you do them well and getting praised and appreciated, that was my driver for a long time. And now that I'm on my own, well, with a co-founder, but yet, and yes, we do have a lot of validation. That's why I love pitch competitions, because that's where we get the validation. That's where we get praise. That's where we get this appreciation. So it's a bit of pat on the back that I need. But otherwise, you keep doing things. You never know when they're going to pay off. You don't get the money for it. You don't get any instant results. And just enduring that, knowing that it may or may not yield any result at all, that you may fail, and statistically you will probably fail. That's been taking a huge emotional, mental toll on me. So that's something I'm still actively tackling, because I'm prone to this depression, a pathetic state of mind, when you just don't have the energy to do anything, especially creative and strategic work. And startup is all about strategic and creative work, right? So breaking down this bigger task, which seems scary and too strategic and too overwhelming, into smaller ones that you can do and get some feeling of instant gratification, has been something that it has been a strategy that I've been refining a lot. So yeah, I guess my mental health and my mental shift has been the biggest barrier so far, but I feel like we're getting to the point where I could say this is getting out of my way. Because again, there are lots of external factors, such as bad timing to fundraise, different economy to what it was in 2021, different things happening in the world, UK being freaky about its immigration policy, but really it's all solvable. I mean, it's all about how you navigate these things and adapt to challenges.
Oh yeah, I understand. Let me say this. I mean, from as an outsider, that I've been following you on LinkedIn for quite a while. Since or I guess it was in October or something last year that I started following you.
I'm pretty sure we met at the same event where I met Alexandra, my co-founder.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, you were in a costume.
That was a Halloween.
Yeah. Alice
in
costume,
Wonderland.
right? Yeah, right. So, that's great. Then you met Alexandra at that event.
Yes,
oh,
I did.
Nice, very nice. Then I guess it was very productive event for you.
Yeah, I'm sometimes thinking if I should wear the Alice in Wonderland costume to more startup events. It was so productive back then.
Yeah, it was really memorable. Yeah, I've been following you since then, and you post quite regularly all your progress and what's happening. And I would say that as an outsider, I can see that there has been a great progress, because at that point I remember that you didn't have the product. You didn't have the product then, and as far as I remember, you were just you were. It was a week since you started this, or you were at the very beginning of your journey back then?
So I came back from my holiday in Colombia in early October, and that was, I think, the last days of October or early November. So I literally had nothing done but a pitch deck with some B2C research done behind. That's all I had back then.
Okay, well, yeah, you had back then the only thing, and now you have a co-founder. You built the MVP, and it is about to be released. Well, it's a great traction for how many? 6 months? 7 months?
Actually, we also got into an accelerator, so there has been a bit of that traction as well. Nice. A different accelerator.
What accelerator is that?
So it's called Good Tech Ventures. It's London-based accelerator for social impact-minded entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And we were first actually rejected because we were not at the right stage, because we didn't have a product yet and no traction. But at the feedback call, when I informed them that, well, actually, we're just about to release our MVP, and also we get some partnerships signed, so it's all good that we're not getting accepted right now. They were like, wait a minute, actually, that makes you right for our stage. So how about you join? So I said, well, why not? And we joined, and it's been good because it's mostly focused not on fundraising, because I've been through a lot of accelerators with the previous startup. I've been through Antler, so I do know a thing or two about fundraising, even though I'm not applying it just yet. But this accelerator is much about marrying your business metrics and performance with the social impact metrics. And I feel like this is where we really need some guidance. So it's been quite good in that sense.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess advisors and in general, the programs that would refocus you to the important points of the startup is very important, especially if you are new to this, like yourself and, for example, us. One of the minuses that we had, in my experience, I would say that we didn't get too much advice from more experienced or even accelerators. And we are as well have joined one accelerator that is starting in September, and we think that it may be a good traction for us as well.
Which?
It is NatWest.
Okay.
NatWest accelerator. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
I think it can be a good opportunity to connect with necessary people, and especially to learn more about the important points of where we're doing wrong, so that we could correct it and take it to the next level. So and I think after accelerator you would be good to raise money.
Well, I hope so too. I hope we will be in a good position to do that even before we finish. But having an accelerator, for me, the biggest advantage is that you get that bit of external tracking that helps, and that Bob mentioned instant gratification when you have that pat on the back from someone who is watching over you and is supposed to give you sincere feedback. Then it's definitely it motivates you a little bit more. Like, you are supposed to be motivated by yourself, right? It's your venture, but the reality is you do get demotivated. You do have your days when you think, what the hell am I doing with my life? So getting a bit of that external validation is important, well, at least for me.
I guess it is important for most of the people, but for some, for example, especially if you didn't have any experience before building a startup, or let's say any business that takes time. And me as well, for example, I always had a corporate normal employee background, and it's there, you know what you're doing, like you are getting a paycheck every month. You do your job, you get the paycheck. You do your job, you get the paycheck. Yeah. But in business, it's no sales, no money. So that's how it works. Now that you are well-seasoned, you are well-seasoned communication expert, and with your background in broadcasting journalism, what would you say was the skill of yours that helped you the most in your entrepreneurship journey?
Easy, telling a story.
Nice.
So all this insights and workshops about telling a story, for me, mostly they tell me nothing new, because basically that's what I've been trained for all my professional life. It's about telling a story in the time usually under 3 minutes, because the average TV feature is about 3 minutes, and that's the average length of the pitch as well. And you have to start with something that hooks your viewers' attention. You have to fit all the most important bits of information into this 3 minutes, and you have to finish off with some CTA or something that stays with those who witness your feature. So that's a very transferable skill for an entrepreneur, turns out. And also, again, because of TV features vary from 40 seconds to 3 or 5 minutes, that also makes your mind very flexible, because when you need to introduce yourself in 1 minute, you just do that. You need to introduce yourself and tell about the event in 3 minutes, you do that. And so you can stretch it as much as you can. But also what's been very helpful, I'd say, other than telling your story and being confident to deliver it in public, is being able to process extortionate amounts of information in a very short amount of time. So I'd say my learning skill, and I learn and adapt super quickly, it comes from the fact that when you're a journalist, you have very little time to grasp a lot of information, some of which you had never any idea of, and you have to process it into something digestible for others. So that's been a very transferable skill. And also, another thing is, when you're a journalist, especially working in broadcasting and in global events, well, I worked as a project coordinator in global events as well, and it's pretty much the same in the sense that it's a job that has very irregular hours. You have to be constantly ready for something to go off the plan. You have to anticipate that no day will be the same as the previous one. And it's a hyper fast-paced environment. Again, when you're a broadcast journalist, especially if you're working at events, like your hours can be, 20 hours, or you cannot sleep at all. And it varies. It's not always like that. But that's a life of it. Even as a broadcast journalist working in one city with no major events coming up, it was still a kind of lifestyle when I would know what I'm doing the next day at about 8 p.m. the day before. So that really teaches you to be flexible and be natural, feel natural in this fast-paced, unpredictable environment. So when people now say, "Oh, how did you step out of your comfort zone?" I always say, like, what comfort zone? I don't remember being in one. Well, I was when I was working my creative editor role in an IT company. That was probably my only time frame when I was in that sort of comfort zone. But then it wasn't a comfort zone for me because I was so used to this fast-paced, unpredictable environment that I lacked that adrenaline. I lacked that feeling of the pulse in my life that I did have as a journalist, and I do have now as an entrepreneur.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Well, storytelling. I heard from many other founders that while you are fundraising, storytelling is the most important part. So I guess you're covered with that. So you are good to go. You can raise money like this. Okay, about the future of your startup. Where do you see it in 5 years, in 2 years, in 5 years? What would you like your Imii to be?
Well, as someone who's changed my life, my geographical location, my career so much, it's still very hard for me to project myself in 5 years' time. But I could probably borrow a bit of inspiration from our predecessors. So there was a company that built something meaningful for immigrants before. They built a social network app for immigrants that had a similar USP, as in connecting immigrants to the right resources and information and service providers in their new countries. And they did really well in the sense that they had 1 million users around the world. They scaled to several locations. Problem with them was that they didn't start monetizing early enough. They were living off the venture capital. They went all the way to Series A, 12 million in the last round. But because they didn't start monetizing in 2021, so that's still the COVID era, they ran out of cash and they had to close down. So my vision is to repeat what they did well, expand and have that hopefully 1 million users, at least 1 million users in that 5 years' time, but also be running a sustainable business which has big B2B clients that are paying the cash that's needed to make it all feasible as a startup, but also monetizing through some other streams, which we also have in our financial model. But point being, that's the kind of recognition and the geographical presence that I aim for. In general, one thing I want to do is to have built something that I would be proud of and something that I would love to look back on in 10 years' time. Because it's also, for me, it's not just about delivering a tech solution, which helps people. It's also about shifting the paradigm a little bit. Because the real reason why I'm creating all of this is just, I largely believe, as an immigrant born and raised, as a third culture kid myself, that immigration, when you destigmatize it, it's one of the major ways to make our world more equal, to redistribute the resources, to tackle with all the consequences of centuries of certain civilizations and countries exploiting others. The way to shift our world to be more equal and global and collaborative is fostering immigration the right way. And you can say what you want about immigration being harmful to economies and societies because whatever, you know, what people who are against immigration usually say. My point is, you say what you will, but you can't stop it. So you can either learn to live with it and collaborate with immigration and direct it into the right stream so it benefits everyone. The society is accepting newcomers, the newcomers themselves and the countries they come from. Or you can try to fight it and face the consequences, which is all the mess that we see now.
Oh, great. I mean, besides just being a business, it has an amazing social impact that you want, that you like. And hopefully, very soon we'll start using it, testing it, then using it. And it will be a big help to all the users. And thank you for sharing your story and especially sharing the parts with your personal constraints while building the business, because I guess it is a barrier for aspiring for new founders when they see a founder that has reached some point, some level at their business. It seems like a little intimidating maybe for them to get there, but to see that everybody is experiencing some kind of personal fight, let's say, is, I guess, a little relatable and maybe a little helpful to see that all these founders are somehow going through stress and sometimes a depression and some personal psychological fights. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing your story and for being with us again. If you have any questions to Jane, please drop a comment. We will include your information in the down below so that you can maybe reach Jane when you need.
Always happy to be in touch and elaborate more. all help those who need a little bit of that extra kick or motivation to start something of their own.
Thanks.